Boy, oh boy, oh boy, not looking good for the Biden crime family as more Democrats and independents are becoming red-pilled. Enough is enough. Biden should pardon President Trump. It's getting real, y'all. Make sure y'all hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Let me know what y'all think of all this. And y'all got to check this bad boy out, man.
You know, the Biden situation disgusted me in terms of the parting only from this standpoint, Chris. Nobody on the planet, you want to be a cynic and you want to act like you would be offended by something like that if you're one of those people out there, fine. But no one within reason would have a problem with him saying, it's my son. I love him. There's no way I'm sending him to jail. And I have the power to avoid it. Nobody would blame him for that. But that's not where he went. So I didn't have a problem to answer your question directly with the decision that he made to pardon his son. Boo Boo the Fool knew he was going to do that. I don't care who he stood in front of or sat in front of and said that he wasn't going to pardon his son and he was just going to go by the letter of the law. Please, everybody and their grandmother knew he was going to pardon his son. But to come out and to start talking about how it's been a witch hunt and the Department of Justice and others were after him or whoever it was, and the GOP rather was after him.
Oh, yes.
Well, wait a minute. What have y'all been doing with Donald Trump all of these years? Now, you can make an argument about the legitimacy of the cases against Donald Trump compared to what wasn't legitimate, et cetera. That's not the point. The point is it was clearly politicized. You had folks on the left who were hell-bent on going after Donald Trump because they were determined to make sure that he couldn't run for re-election or that these elements would get in the way of him possibly winning re-election. And now we know why more than ever, because they weren't confident they would ever be able to beat him. He'd been a Republican nominee since 2016. He beat Hillary Clinton with the Electoral College vote. He wouldn't concede defeat in 2020, but he did receive over 74 million votes at that particular moment in time. And then you fast forward 4 years later, despite the 34 felony convictions, the 2 impeachments, the bevy of crimes that he had been accused of, the Republican voters out there, the conservative voters out there, and a lot of independents from various communities said, he's the guy we want, and I've said it on many, many occasions. It wasn't about him. Just like it wasn't about Biden in 2020, it was more against Trump. In this particular instance, it was an indictment against the Biden administration, what had been going on for the last 4 years. Some of the things going on with the border, obviously inflation, of course, crime in the streets, of course, woke and cancel culture and all of that, it all played a role. And so for him to come out and to talk about that this was a witch hunt when clearly it could be argued that's exactly what you were doing to Donald Trump, or you assisted in doing, seems beyond hypocritical. And that was what disgusted me. It wasn't his decision. It wasn't him pardoning his son. It was the weak, pathetic explanation that he gave, which has most critics just shaking their heads and raising their eyebrows and saying, what nerve you have.
Woo. Now we're making sense, huh, Stephen A. Smith? Now we're making sense. Told y'all, and there's more and more just like him that are becoming more red-pilled. Liberals, Democrats, independents. They're out of reach now. They've lost all control now. Now we're making sense. But that's what it's been with these Democrats. Nothing but lies. Ponzi scheme. Can't beat their opponent fair and square. Fake news, propaganda, misinformation. And again, more lies and lies and lies. And there's a lot of people that need to put their hands behind their back. A lot of people that need to be held accountable. So this shouldn't surprise a lot of people.
Now, I agree with you 100%. I went light on that point in my open because I knew you were going to make it. I agree with you 100%. And he didn't have to do it that way. He could have just said what you said, which is, hey, look, I don't want them. He's my son, and they're going to go after him. And if I can protect him, I'm going to protect him. You know what else Biden should do? and I know people are going to get upset about this, but just think about it before you go crazy on me. Not you, everybody else. If I were he, I would pardon Trump.
Woo.
I
You
would
know
pardon
something?
Trump.
Honestly,
I would say
honestly,
this
as
has
crazy
gotta
as this
stop.
sounds,
It is.
Chris,
I'd pardon.
Chris, that's exactly what I would do. That's exactly what I would do. Enough's enough. You know what?
Enough is enough. What do y'all think of that? Pardon Trump. Enough is enough. What do y'all think of that?
You're the Democrats. You lost the election. You got your butt whipped. You couldn't prevent him from going back to the White House. More than a dozen cases have been dropped against him. The cases that have been ruled against him, he's going to appeal, and he'll probably get off from having to deal with all of that. It's time to move forward. You want to get at Trump? Sit back and judge what he does. Guess what? You got a midterm election in 2 years. Are you going to be ready if you're the Democratic Party? You should be. He's going to be in the presidency for 4 years. You're going to be able to judge every single act that he does. March forward, move forward. Gerald Ford could have let Nixon suffer. You know to say he didn't let that happen. Why? Because it was for the good of the country. The whole hanging Chads issue in 2000 between George W. Bush and Al Gore. Gore could have dragged it on. He didn't. It was for the better of the country. And a lot of times these folks speak about this stuff, but they don't do what they say they're going to do and what they implore others to do, which is where the disgust elevates exponentially for Washington, D.C., because we know they're full of it most of the time. And today was the latest example of that.
Let's bring in Dan Turrentine, former Democrat, advisor and co-host of the morning meeting, which we enjoyed greatly during this election season. All right, Dan, how are Democrats feeling after this pardon that was just decided?
They're not feeling good, Jesse. When you have both Stephen A. Smith and Jon Stewart going after you, you definitely have a problem. And I think, unfortunately, this was the capstone to what's been 2 years of political failure on the part of Joe Biden as the political leader of our party. Democrats have believed now for the last almost 9 years since Trump rose in two bedrock principles. One is that no man is above the law, and two, that the institutions of this country and the people that work for them are good and honorable. And Joe Biden just kneecapped right out from under us both of those principles.
Yep.
And now, no doubt that Donald Trump will likely issue pardons to friends and others. He'll say, hey, those people were convicted and attacked because of me, because they support me. And he's probably going to do some reforms to the Department of Justice and the FBI, and Democrats are going to scream, what are you doing? And he's going to say, even Joe Biden thinks that those institutions are corrupt, the people there are corrupt, and this is all politics. And it puts the Democratic Party basically in handcuffs as it gets ready to deal with Donald Trump.
You said this was a capstone to, I don't know if you said a failed presidency, but the last two words have been bad last 2 years. Are you a Biden Democrat? Would you go like this if I asked?
I am a proud Democrat. I think the party has a real problem here as it heads into the future, and that is it is not seen as authentic or trustful.
Okay, so that's a no.
That's a big no.
Do you know any Biden Democrats? I just invited the entire country, if you're a Biden Democrat, come on the show and defend this guy.
It's getting harder and harder to find. I mean, look at all the Senate candidates up in 2026 that are saying things. The grassroots are upset. It's hard to find anybody because they feel like going back to last year when everyone saw Joe Biden declining his mental acuity, and they were told all was well. Then we have the debate.
But let me interrupt you, because no one watching on TV thought that. You didn't need to hear from Biden insiders that all was well. You could see he was not well. Why did the Democratic Party just carry that lie ahead?
Look, I mean, some of us were saying it over a year ago that it was an issue the party needed to really bring to the forefront and debate. And I think that they were so, their Trump derangement syndrome, they were so desperate to defeat him that the Biden people said, look, we did it once. The midterms, we did better than anyone thought. We can talk about, why that was. But they said, look, we can do this. We're the only ones that can do this. And the party was so afraid of having a debate and actually, putting ideas forth that they rallied around him, even though the voters clearly saw he was declining.
Well, you made a great point. When you've lost to Jon Stewart and Stephen A. Smith as a Democrat,
you got a problem.
You got a problem. All right,
Oh,
again,
boy.
talk to any Biden Democrats. They have an open invitation.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Thank you very much.